Everybody, Nike here. I wanted to do the updated build guide for the PvE Condition Damage Warrior for solo dungeons and fractals. The specialization patch changed so much that this build was completely thrown up in the air, and recreating it the way it used to be before didn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of things have, so much things have changed. It took me a while to really nail down exactly where we wanted to be with traits and gear and even rotations at this point. So what I want to do without further delay is get into it and show you guys the new build. Alright guys, so gear. For trinkets, I recommend full Ascended Sinister. If you're going to use infusions, Maligned infusions are of course the best. For back piece, there is no Sinister back piece, so I recommend Rampagers. Rampagers is the highest DPS option of the ones available for this build. Moving on to armor, I recommend Sinister Armor again, with Superior Rune of the Aristocracy. Superior Rune of the Aristocracy gives us a lot of might duration as well as condition damage. Might also gives us condition damage and direct damage, so in a build that does a lot of direct damage too and condition damage, might is really, really good for us. And the build, naturally through its DPS rotation, stacks a good bit of might. So overall, this is just the best rune choice for us to take. For weapons, I recommend a main hand sword, Sinister stats, with Superior Sigil of Strength. This will contribute with our might stacking, so it basically gives us more power, more condition damage, Superior Sigil of Strength, good stuff. Offhand, Ascended Sinister Sword of Strength, of Superior Sigil of Agony gives us 20% bleed duration. The issue, one of the changes that happened was the trait that gave warriors 50% bleed duration got nerfed to 33%. So we lost 17%. In order to make that up and get back to 100% bleed duration, we need Superior Sigil of Agony. Therefore, I recommend using Superior Sigil of Agony here. It is going to allow us to maximize our bleeds and hit that 100% bleed cap, and we will be good to go. On swap, we're going to have a Giver's Longbow with Superior Sigil of Smoldering. The reason Givers is because our longbow is mostly here to inflict super hard-hitting burns, and we want those burns to last as long as possible. So in order to do that, we're going to get 20% burn duration from the Giver's Longbow itself, and then another 20 from the Smoldering Sigil. Combined with our food and consumable nourishment, we're going to have 90% bleed or 90% burn duration. So this is definitely the best choice for maximizing our burns. The other sigil slot on the Giver's Longbow can be anything. I recommend Corruption. I think Corruption works really good for super fast boss kills, and it also is easy to stack up stacks when you're doing dungeon solos and content where you have to kill a lot of trash mobs. If you're not so into the stacking and you don't really care, you just want to have fun and not think about stacks, that's completely understandable. In those cases, I recommend Sigil of Battle for more might stacking, which is very, very powerful. Alternatively, you could even use Geomancy and Doom, and you could even use Superior Sigil of Agony so that you get 100% bleed duration from your pin down. All of those are fine, completely viable choices. I recommend, if you're going to go big, go with Corruption. But again, Battle, Agony, Doom, and Geomancy, all completely viable choices. So that's it for gear. We will go into traits next, guys. Alright, traits are pretty straightforward. We're going to go, in this build, with Arms, Tactics, and Discipline. And we'll go over the different traits in each line and explain why. Arms is kind of a no-brainer. It's the Condi line, and I will discuss the choices that we're going to make. You see at minor traits, we're going to get Bleed on Crit, very strong. It's the meat and potatoes of the build, is getting those extra bleeds. At the Adept level, we're going to take Signet Mastery. This is going to make activating our Signets a really, really good thing. Give us very, very close to 100% crit chance, even when solo, which is super, super powerful. And just makes our Elite Signet of Rage that much better. Rending Strikes, Vuln on Crit, not too bad. Nothing to write home about when you're solo, but it's free, we'll take it. At the Master level, we will take Blade Master. Some people might suggest that Deep Strike is a little bit better because between your For Great Justice and your Signet of Rage, you are applying it quite often. This could very well be a viable choice. However, I like Blade Master for one particular reason. You get your Impale a lot more often. It allows you to maintain much higher levels of Torment uptime, and it is pretty exceptional extra DPS when you have Torment going up to 6, maybe 7 stacks in a fight, as opposed to just 5 or 4, and the average Torment that you keep up is around 4 or 5 as opposed to 2 or 3. The damage is noticeable. You can play around with it. I might consider trying Deep Strikes for a couple different bosses just to see which one gives you better kill time. My opinion, Blade Master's better with Impale. It's the way to go. And then the big trait in the line is the Grandmaster Minor. That is Bloodlust. The damage increase is fine. Not amazing, but we'll take it. It is the 33% bleed duration that really makes the build tick. It gets us to that 100% bleed cap, and it is just really, really nice. And at the GM trait, we're going to take dual wielding, attack speed increase while wielding a sword, axe, or mace in your offhand. So in a sword build, our auto attacks are going to be 15% faster on paper. In game practice, it's basically a 10% increase of the amount of auto attacks you get to do. Well, a 10% increase in the amount of auto attacks you get to do means you're going to get 10% more applications of bleeding from sever, artery, and gash, both of which are extremely the base of our damage. It's the base of our damage. So increasing that by 10%, it's sort of a good way to get around the fact that our bleeds are limited to 100% duration. If we're limited in our duration, then the only other thing we have to do is increase the amount that we can apply, and dual wielding helps us do that. Tactics is the newcomer. Before we were using Strength, because Strength had a built-in condition duration boost. We don't have that anymore, so there's no reason to go into Strength. Strength does nothing for us. Quickly discussing the traits. Empowered, it's a 1% increase for every boon on us. Not the greatest thing in the world, but it's better than the other two options. Major level, Burning Arrows. We don't really care about the auto attack on the longbow inflicting burning, even though it sounds pretty good. In practice, it doesn't really work out to be so well to incorporate a dual shot into your rotation. What we're here for is the reduced recharge of 20%. The reduced recharge of 20% means that you will get to pin down 5 seconds faster. Having pin down off cooldown whenever you swap back to longbow is extremely valuable, and it's what makes the rotation work. And at the GM level, we take Vigorous Shouts. You might say, what? Vigorous Shouts? Why? It allows us to spam for Great Justice that much more often, and it brings it to a 20-second cooldown, so there'll be quite a few times where you have a lot of might going for Great Justice, and in a solo situation, that's really good. Additionally, it helps keep your Fury uptime just that much higher. And lastly, it builds Adrenaline, which is not negligible. That's actually really important for the DPS rotation of this build, as I will explain. One modifier you might want to do, if you guys are ever in a group, if you're going to use this build in group play, you're going to want to change Empower to Empower Allies and Phalanx Strength. This build does generate quite a bit of might from the Strength Sigil, as well as the general might stacking and the For Great Justice. So it is worth taking Phalanx Strength with this build if you are going to play this in a group. But for solo play, Burning Arrows, Vigorous Shouts. Bringing us to Discipline. This is mostly here for fast hands, but a lot of the other traits come in really useful. Versatile Rage, 5 Adrenaline on Weapon Swap. That is really, really super good. We need that as part of our DPS rotation to function properly, so I will explain. Warrior Sprint, okay. Movement speed increase, nothing to write home about. Fast Hands, of course, amazing, as you all know. It allows you to not have to camp Longbow. We can just use Longbow for the money skills and move on. Inspiring Battle Standard, Banners also grant regen. Since we will be using Banners in this build, Banner of Strength, most importantly, Inspiring Battle Standard giving you regen is really, really powerful, especially in a boss solo where you will take damage in a boss solo. So having just a little bit of ambient regen along with your healing signet means you're going to have a lot more sustain in those difficult boss solos. Versatile Power got buffed in this patch to 2 Might on weapon swap. Might not seem like a big deal, but these Might stacks last 14.5 seconds with Superior Rune of the Aristocracy, and we do swap our weapons fairly often, so you do build up a very useful amount of Might with the weapon swap. And then at the Grandmaster level, we take Heightened Focus, gain quickness when you strike a foe that is below the health threshold. You really, really enjoy this in this build. Especially once the boss hits 50%, your auto attacks on sword pick up in speed so fast, you can see the bleed stacking up much, much faster. Combined with the dual wielding for when you don't have the Heightened Focus, and then when the Heightened Focus procs, you go into overdrive and stack up just tons of bleeds. Really, really powerful for this build. You could take Burst Mastery, but we don't really have a problem using our burst skills when we want to use them in the rotation without it, so it's not really that useful, and the damage increase, since this is not a direct damage build, is pretty negligible. So Heightened Focus all the way. So that's it for traits, guys. We'll discuss skills. Moving on. Alright, guys, skills. Our healing skill is, of course, going to be Healing Signet. Healing Signet really doesn't need much explanation. The passive heal is really good. When you activate it with Signet Precision, you get a good amount of extra precision. Always recommend just activating it in between combats and at the start of every fight, just for that extra 100 precision. If you activate it in between fights on your way to the next boss, you'll get a pretty healthy amount of precision built up over time. So it's pretty good overall. Next skill will be Signet of Fury. This is also very useful. It gives us a lot of passive precision, and then also when you activate it, of course, you get another stack of Signet Precision. But what's most useful for is it allows you to start the fight off with full adrenaline. As you'll see when we get into the DPS rotation, this is the key to starting our damage really high just right at the start of the fight. Next skill will be Banner of Strength. Banner of Strength boosts our power and our condition damage. Since we have really high crit chance, we don't really gain much from the precision. But having the extra power and condition damage is a huge boost to our damage, since it affects both our condition damage and our direct damage. And as well as Banner giving us tons of regen from our trait. It's all super good. As I sort of explained before, for Great Justice is our third skill. It gives us Adrenaline, it gives us Fury, it gives us Might. It's just really good for boss solos in general, especially in this build. And our elite skill is Signet of Rage, which does the same thing as for Great Justice, but on a longer cooldown and more powerfully, as well as giving us swiftness and contributing to Signet Precision. This is a super good skill for us. So that's basically it for the skills. It's pretty straightforward. There's really not much else to discuss. You're going to want to stick with these skills 99% of the time, unless you happen to be fighting a boss where you absolutely are 100% sure that you're not going to need the... where you're going to need some sort of utility. You can always change Signet of Fury out for anything else. For super difficult bosses, you can go Signet of Stamina. In other situations, you never know what you might be called upon to do. You can always add any of the other skills as necessary. So that is it for the skills, and I will talk about DPS rotations next. Alright, DPS rotations, guys. So you're going to want to start every fight by activating your signets, dropping your banner, and then right when you're getting ready to attack the boss, Signet of Fury. First thing you're going to do when you go live in combat is drop Combustive Shot, followed by Arcing Arrow for the burning and for the Might stack. Follow it up with Fan of Fire and Pin Down. That's how you're going to want to open pretty much every fight. It's going to be the best bet for you because you'll get a nice burst of bleeds and you'll get all the burning. Second you do that, you will switch back to Sword, and at that point, the very first move you're going to make in Sword is to Flurry. You'll have just enough for 1 bar of Adrenaline when you swap back to Sword, so you can immediately Flurry and put some more bleeds on the boss. This will be a nice burst of bleeding. Next move after Flurry is Impale. You'll impale the boss, get your Torment going, and move on to auto-attacking with Sword. And you will just continually auto-attack with Sword until Impale comes off cooldown. Once Impale comes off cooldown, you'll Impale for the second time, and that is your cue to swap back to Longbow. At that point, your pin down should be just coming off cooldown, and you'll be ready to do your Longbow rotation again. So you'll Impale, swap back to Longbow, drop Combustive Shot, Arcing Arrow, Fan of Fire, pin down, swap back to Sword, Flurry, and then auto attack till Impale is ready to go again. Then after your second Impale, back to Longbow. So this should work like a charm. This rotation is repeatable, and you'll be able to do that basically infinitely going on. And that's the rotation you just want to memorize and commit to muscle memory. I'm going to show you a video of the rotation in action on the Golem if you want to see an example of it, and you can kind of get a feel for it in action. All right, and so stay tuned for that. Just 1 second. Alright guys, last thing I want to talk about is food and nourishment. Food and nourishment, way more so than in a direct damage build, are hugely important. In a direct damage build, your nourishment's going to give you 10% for a slaying potion, and your food is going to give you another 5%. So you're looking at like a 15% damage boost from using the right food in a direct damage build, which is good. It's great even, but it's not the same as a condition damage build. In a condition damage build, you're going to get 50% condition duration plus a bunch of stats from your food. Now, for a condition damage build, a 50% duration increase is basically the same as a 50% DPS increase. So whereas in a direct damage build, your food's giving you 15% damage, condition damage food is giving you somewhere in the ballpark of a 55% DPS boost. It is not optional. You don't have to use the best, most expensive foods, but you have to use something if you want good results from a condition damage build. I recommend rare veggie pizzas that give you 40% condition duration and 70 condition damage. You can use the cheaper alternative koi cakes. They only last for 20 minutes, but they do the same stats. If you're on a super budget, you can buy, I think it's like the Supreme veggie pizzas. The condition duration doesn't last as long. It's not best in slot, obviously, but it's still decent if you're just messing around in Silver Waste or something and don't want to blow a ton of gold on food. But, yeah, when you want best in slot, it's rare veggie pizza. From our nourishment side, we will get Toxic Focusing Crystals. They do 10% condition duration and 100 condition damage. This is huge. This is basically, like, just by itself, a 13% damage boost. It's just a really, really powerful item. If you're on a budget, you can use the normal tuning crystals. They're only, even the best one, the master level or whatever, is only going to give you like 90 condition damage. So it doesn't even hold a candle to Toxic Focusing Crystal at all. But these have the benefit of being super cheap. So if you don't want to completely min-max, you can just go with the tuning crystals. However, I highly recommend if you're doing anything and want to get the best results to invest in some Toxic Focusing Crystals and some rare veggie pizzas. So that is basically it, guys, for the build I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope that it works out as well for you as it has for me, and you guys enjoy playing it. If you have any questions, hit me up below in the comments. I will be sure to answer them for you. Have a great day, guys.